is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we get into the deeper meaning of your favorite filmmakers' movies. And once again, we're doing a different episode. As you can see, we have another guest. Please welcome in from Collider, Miss Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so fun.
I really did. I wanted to do an Avatar episode, and when I thought of who I can do that with, I really did think of you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I remember you were really into it. So
I am. I was saying that I'm kind of a late boomer because this came out, the series ended in 2008.
Yeah.
So I watched it. My roommate had a DVD. And when I came home one day, he was just rewatching it. And I stood there with all of my purse and all of my stuff on, coming home from my job. And I just watched, like, straight up stood for 20 minutes and watched it. And then afterwards, I'm like, so what is it? And I'm interested. And he went to his room and he gave me all the 3 books and he said, enjoy. And I was like obsessed.
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm so excited to get into it. For you guys listening right now, we're going to get into all the books. We're going to get into some of our favorite moments. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Avatar themes. Because I really do feel like, especially rewatching it, I rewatched book 2 and 3 this past week. It's incredible how many different themes and stories and lessons and messages that are deep inside this, especially towards the later books, but are deep inside this incredible animated series. So I'm super excited to get into it. And let's start with that. Since you told us a little bit, I'll go to you, RB3. What is your discovery of this show? How did you get into it? Did you get into it? Walk me through all that.
Well, I mean, for me, this came on like right when I was like a kid, you know. So this was started in 2005 or 2006, and it ended in 2008. So I was watching them like live as they were airing.
Oh,
that's great.
But you know, that was like 10 years ago. So I really hadn't picked it up like since. But when I was a kid, I was like the biggest fan of it. I watched like every week. They had a long hiatus, I think, between book 2 and book 3. That was like, this was like too much, you know. But I was really into it. I don't remember a lot of the plot per se in particulars like now. And I feel bad because they did Legend of Korra only a couple years later, but I never watched that one at all.
that's the follow-up podcast to this one. You're gonna make RB3
absolutely.
all of
Legend of
Korra,
Korra.
back and talk
I
about
have
it.
it too, so I can give it to you.
Really?
But I know if I give it to you, you won't watch it.
No, I'll watch it. No, I'll watch it because I really do think that the original Avatar series is probably one of the best. Like,
it
of
really
all time.
is.
It really
And obviously
is.
that's not a discussion that I want to have because I think all 3 of us agree on that. It's one of, if not the greatest animated series of all time. And I was thinking about it on the drive here. I mean, Batman the animated series is up there, Justice League the animated series, but I still put Avatar above all those. That's just my personal take on it.
It's different because it was an original idea, and you have this group of kids who can bend the elements, right? And it's not like super, you know, like we think about, like say Captain Planet. Kids are also using elements to, you know, but this had such a solid storyline, all these different character arcs, developments, and you grow as each book came out. You grew with these kids and you really felt attached to each and every one of them, the good guys and the villains.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. One of my favorite parts of the show is obviously the intro of the show, and I think the intro of the show is exactly, especially towards children, right? Because as an adult you can see it and you can, you know, dive into it, but as a child, you know, that intro, as far as like 100 years ago, the Avatar, you know, she breaks down the elements, earth, water, air. It's such a great 20-second little world-building moment that tells you what is this world, who's in it, who's the bad guy, and what our journey is going to be with Aang, with the Avatar.
Yeah.
That intro for me, it builds a world, which is one of the most difficult things to do within anime and within like just movies within itself, like original movies, right? Because we don't see a lot of original movies. So world building, to me, I'm incredibly fascinated by it. And as an anime fan, I'm assuming you are as well, because that's the most important thing in anime.
Yeah.
It's like, tell me what this world is, tell me what the rules are, and tell me who the characters are.
Yeah.
Real quick. And usually it just takes a pilot to do that, whereas Avatar did that in the intro, not even in the pilot.
Yeah.
So break down a little bit as far as like, how is this for a hook in the show for kids and for anyone watching? Just that world that it's building, as far as you could tell it's taking elements from like ancient, old school Chinese kind of thing. It's taking those elements, kind of like I pitched it to Makuga because I did an episode of TV
He doesn't
Talk.
watch cartoons, though,
No, he
does he?
doesn't. I pitched it to him and I said it's difficult to pitch to an adult who doesn't have those connections. But I told him it's like what's the Ang Lee movie? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, with a little bit elements of magic with incredible connection to characters. It's like the 10-second pitch I could give
He
Makuga.
probably gets scared when they go to the Fire Nation. Though.
Ooh, yeah.
No, that's a scary thing.
The Puppet Master episode. Makuga's out. He's like, I'm done.
Well, the show was originally supposed to be a kung fu series for Nickelodeon, but then but they didn't. I guess Nick didn't want to have kids just doing straight up kung fu. So they decided to get creative with it and do different forms of kung fu fighting through earthbending, waterbending, and they're all inspired by very specific styles. Like the earthbending is based on a form of southern kung fu called Hong Gar Kun, and Har Kun, and then the waterbending is based on
Wushu, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And then firebending is based on Northern Shaolin Kung Fu, and then airbending is based on Pakyui, I think that's what it's called. And it says better known as I'm really bad at pronouncing it. Somebody have to help me out here. But yeah, that word right there. I don't know if you can read that.
Pakua?
Pakua, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, no, but that's but it's fascinating that they took the inspirations from all these different styles of Kung Fu, and like you said, it's like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah. Particularly that movie deals a lot with like air and movement. Yeah. So it takes a lot of influence from that too. So I think it's really cool that an animated show kind of incorporated those things.
Right away, the world they put you in is a world that you can reflect as something you recognize, right? So the way I break it down and the way most people break it down is Earth Nation is very much traditional Chinese.
Yes.
Fire Nation is very much traditional Japanese with the samurai influence.
Yeah.
And then the southern and northern water tribes are Eskimo, native. They're called chiefs, like Chief Sokka, Chief. So the names, the titles, the animation style when we go to the Fire Nation in book 3 is very Japanese. Yeah. And then when we go to the Earth Nation in book 2, it's very Chinese, traditional, the outfits they're wearing, everything that's being done. And that's kind of the elements we see right away. And it gets us right into the mood of like, this is a great world that clearly has Asian influence all over it.
Yeah, and that's what really pulled me into the show is because when they open, they say earth, fire, air, and which one am I saying? Earth, water, fire, and...
Yeah,
air,
you said
right. Okay, they have the words pop up behind them. I grew up in Taiwan, so I can read the Chinese. So I'm always a little critical of when anime or any sort of animation when they bring in that that side of animation, they want to use actual Chinese characters and they don't use it correctly. It really pisses me off. And I'm like, why didn't you do more research? And you can see it within that first 20 seconds of that little bumper. They get it all right and they research. And I liked how different the color schemes was, and that really caught my eyes. And immediately, because I'm a very visual person, and that immediately made me go, I want to see what that is all about. Because when you see the water tribe, they're predominantly blue and white. We have the air nomads who are a little bit more earthier, neutral tone. We have when you go to like Ba Sing Se, everybody's in like green and gold, and then you have Fire Nation, which is obviously red. So I just love seeing that for a kids show. They make it really distinct. They don't try to confuse you. There's no complex storyline in the beginning. They just want to get you in, and it's led by kids for kids. In the beginning was a Nickelodeon show. So and I'm a big kid, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll watch it. And once I started watching the first episode, I really couldn't stop. I fell in love with the characters almost immediately.
Yeah, and it's crazy how, along with the Asian influence, there's an incredible, like you just said, deep dives into martial arts, because martial arts is the big hook inside the show as well. And, being a massive martial arts fan myself, that's like the biggest connection I can have towards the show. Which brings me up to a follow-up question that a lot of people debate, and I've debated this various times with different people that are fans of the show or not fans of the show. Is this, for all intents and purposes, we're going to get into definitions a little bit, is this an anime? Is this anime? And that's the big question that a lot of people ask.
It's American made.
It's American made, which immediately disqualifies it from anime. Yeah. But when it comes to style, tone, demographic for the audience,
inspired.
Themes, story, like those kinds of things, it feels so much more like an anime that the way I say it is I call it like American anime. It's the first example we've ever seen of American anime where it's clearly anime, but it's American made.
Yes.
So I don't know what you think of that. Do you think it's disqualified clearly because it's not Japanese made?
I want to disqualify it immediately because in my mind I have that very strong divide of Japanese animation is called anime. Everything is made here, whether or not it's inspired by Japanese anime or manga, is American animation. So I don't want to call it an anime, but it's as close as any U.S. animation I have seen getting to at that time for its time. I think now we've gotten a little bit more. I think with animation today, there's that new Star Wars animation that, you know, so the arts, people are starting to be like, yeah, it is okay to be inspired by anime and for it to look like it. But what's so important to me about an anime is that bumper in the beginning that you said, that Japanese anime almost always does it in the teaser. They explain to you what world you're in, who is what, and what it is about in that first few seconds, and you get it right away. Where I think American animation sometimes takes a bit to get there when you're like third episode and you're like, I think I got what this is about. So I think what is important with this series is that the creators and the writers really are a huge fan of anime, and it shows because it is heavily inspired.
I guess my follow-up to that, and the reason why I bring it up, is because every time I hear cartoon, it just makes me go,
I don't want to call it a cartoon.
I don't want to call it I don't want to
like your Sunday morning
SpongeBob, Fairy Odd Parents, Rugrats. That's what I imagine when I imagine American cartoon. I guess that's my follow-up to you, RB3. It's difficult for me to compare Avatar to the ones I just named. I don't know what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, you just named a lot of Nick shows too. So this
exactly.
is
like,
yeah, that's true.
It doesn't fit.
That's
it just doesn't fit into the cartoon.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but you see other shows, other networks kind of take some more kung fu approach influences as well, like Kung Fu Jack. I remember when I was a kid.
Yes.
What's the samurai?
Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack. That's what I meant. Kung Fu Jack. I mean Samurai Jack. But I mean, I feel like Cartoon Network had a little more like incorporation of you know.
And they had Toonami as well.
Toonami,
that's
yeah.
anime.
But that's anime, yeah. But I mean Nickelodeon. I mean, yeah, like it's tough because it really doesn't have the same kind of archetypes of an American show, but it is American produced. So it does blur that line. But I guess some of the animation, I know a lot of the animation was done in like South Korea.
It is,
and it's done by a lot of the same animators who
do anime.
That's
very true.
But it's but the fact that it's American produced, American made, it does really it does take away that the cultural significance of the Japanese artwork, the Japanese form of animation.
Yeah.
So it's
so hard to like nail it down because for me, I compare it to something like My Hero Academia, for example. I don't know if you've seen that yet, RB3.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes.
That's basically what it is, right? Where it's got humor, it's got horror. It feels very shonen.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is very much directed towards like young boys. And it has that POV, which is all shonen anime of like a young kid. Aang is the young kid versus Deku. Yeah. So I guess that's my best comparison as far as perfect. That's the perfect tone. Is the best example where as My Hero Academia deals with heavy themes of like being a hero and evil and people getting murdered and stuff like that, while as well being like joking like every other second, like 100 miles a minute. So that's kind of where I nail it down. And I also, going back to you, the Korean animation, Castlevania. I don't know if you've seen Castlevania.
My gosh.
Is that anime? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so clearly Japanese anime animated, but it's still
gory.
American made.
It's very graphic.
It's very gory, yeah. So would you consider Castlevania anime?
But it's American made, right?
It is. That's what I'm saying. But it's Korean animated, so a lot of Korean studios.
I think for me, anime also means that the voiceover is in Japanese.
Okay.
That's
so
also,
it has to be first in Japanese.
Like,
okay.
Right, and then English. But I mean, now we have
Dubs.
Japanese anime that are dubbed. But like, I used to be one of those snobby people like, I will only watch anime with Japanese, and like in Japanese with subtitles. Now I'm kind of like, if I'm rewatching a show and I am also doing something. Then I will put it on and I've changed my ways. I am not a snob like that anymore. I'm like open to all. I will listen and take it in whatever form I can get. But yeah, I think that's where some of those qualifications come in. Where if you want to call something an anime or a U.S. animation, but I would not call Avatar cartoon.
Got it. So it's neither. It's like in between.
It's
so
yeah.
good.
In between.
So one of my favorite things to do when I talked about Avatar: The Last Airbender to my friends is to try and nail down what we are as far as like if we lived in the Avatar: The Last Airbender world. What nation would we belong to, and what element would we bend? And the way we did it was like, what's great about Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I feel like if it was now, if Avatar: The Last Airbender came out now, there'd be a BuzzFeed quiz.
I was gonna say, I'm sure there's a BuzzFeed quiz
what
right
bender
now.
are you?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Are you Firebender, Earthbender, all that kind of stuff?
Okay.
But it's crazy because the Fire Nation, Earth Nation, the Air Nation, all these nations, the bending within itself is also a reflection of personality.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a reflection of culture. So being an Earthbender means you're very direct, and it means you're very you confront issues head on. You don't keep stuff hidden inside.
Right.
Being a Firebender means you're very willed, like you have a lot of willpower, and you have a sharp mind, and you're very quick thinking and cunning. It's almost like houses in Harry Potter.
Like the Fire Nation would be a bunch of Slytherins.
Slytherin is
for
a perfect
sure.
example of Fire Nation. Air Nomad is very evasive.
Right.
You avoid confrontation.
Would they be Ravenclaw? Because they're smart.
yeah.
and-
That's good. Yeah.
You avoid confrontation, and you're very like the way Aang fights is just
Yeah.
dodging and dodging.
Well,
Like, he
there-
doesn't want to confront issues,
Right.
Yeah.
so he dodges the issues.
Water Nation's
and
very
Water
really,
Nation-
very healing, very, very tranquil.
That's right.
Very full of movement. I think that's
Fluid.
fluid. Exactly. That's what I love about
So-
the animation. They I'm sorry to cut you off, but
No, that's great.
the different elements all represent the type that we commonly associate with.
Yeah.
So that element, the stoicness with the earth, like you
Yeah.
said. All the different characters.
Isn't that great? That's so
Yeah.
good. So I'll give you guys 2 seconds to think about it.
Okay.
What are you? Let's start with you, Wendy. What bender are you?
We can't have like borders, right? Like we can't. Okay, for example, like I think I'm like, if we're talking Harry Potter houses, I am like 80% Ravenclaw, but I'm like 20% Slytherin.
No. This is you're in
So
the
you're
world.
in?
You're either a
I
bender
have
or you're not a bender.
Okay. Oh well, I'm a bender for sure.
Okay,
I don't
you're
want
a
to be.
bender.
I don't want to be the people that
The
just like
non-benders.
be like.
I don't
want
to be a non-bender.
I don't, that brings us to
That's
the
a
Legend
whole
of Korra.
storyline. Yeah, it's all
no,
about
I want to
like,
be bender because I think I'd be jealous of be like, man, look
Yeah.
what they can do with their
Yep.
elements. I think I would be a Earthbender.
Okay, that's
I'm
great.
very partial to Toph. And when I watch her, I think of me, where she's kind of like sassy. She's in your face, and she also. Can I cuss on this? Or no?
Yeah.
She like does she gives zero fucks.
Yeah.
Just gives zero fucks, and in one of the episodes, which I'm sure we'll talk about coming up, like her intro episode, it's just the funniest thing because she was just talking so much smack to all of her competitors, not to just Aang, but I was like, this little girl is such a brat, and I love her.
Yeah.
She was my favorite.
I could see it. I could see you bouncing rocks everywhere.
Yeah.
Earthbenders are powerful, man. What about you, RB3?
Yeah, they're good. Ideally, I would like to be an airbender. I don't know if I'm. I don't know.
Why
if
can't
I'm
you be
too,
an airbender, man?
Well, I don't
That's
know if-
cool.
I would
Airbenders are
love to.
badass.
No, I would love to. I don't know if I possess the intellect or the emotional kind of strength that Aang and we only see Aang as
Well,
one of
I
the
mean,
airbenders.
yes. I mean, in Korra, we see a little bit more.
You see a little bit more.
Yeah,
of it.
with
Yeah.
Tenzin.
Yeah, but I would ideally love to be that.
Dude, Airbender it is.
Airbender,
Just like that.
Yeah.
When my friends and I did it, we self-diagnosed. We would tell each other what we were. It's like, you're an Earthbender.
Yeah.
One of my favorite friends is like, he was like so excited when we did this. And he was like, what am I, guys? And when we finally get to be like, I don't know if you're a bender, man. And we made him like a non-bender.
You're a muggle.
Which was
sorry.
we're just messing around. But I always said that I would be a firebender just because
I can see it.
wow.
that's the one I would.
Yeah.
I would
I can
target
see it.
toward.
It doesn't mean you're bad.
No, it doesn't mean I'm bad,
no.
but it means that I'm very strong-willed,
Fiery.
and
Yeah,
fiery,
fiery.
and
Hey.
passionate.
Yeah. That's a good word.
That's Latinos. Latinos are firebenders. That'd be the Fire Nation right now.
So if you would cast everyone on Schmoes or on at Collider as benders, like what would you
That's a
put
good
Christian
one.
as?
Oh man,
Oh yeah, he'd
Christian
probably be
would be a
Earthbender.
firebender.
I would say
Oh, really?
that's exactly it.
Really?
Earthbender.
I
see
see him
him
as
as like an
firebender.
old
Firebender.
school.
I could see Firebender.
I could
though.
see
Yeah. I could definitely see Firebender.
I see Mark Ellis as a waterbender.
Yes,
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
100%.
100% waterbender.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
would be Sokka.
Um,
He would be just like but even though Sokka's not like a bender, I guess if Sokka were to have
Yeah.
bending
Yeah.
powers,
Perry.
Comedy
What would
relief.
Perry
He's
be?
funny, super funny.
Perry would be, I think, Air Nation maybe. Perry?
Perry be Air.
Yeah.
Perry?
Or waterbender maybe.
she might be a waterbender.
Yeah,
Water.
waterbender. I could see
Yeah.
that. She has like Katara vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love doing
Jeff
this
is
stuff.
definitely a firebender.
Oh yeah.
So is Roka.
Or an
Roka,
Outbender.
yeah.
One of those two is an Outbender. Who's really jealous of all the benders. And that's why they're angry. I love doing this stuff. One of my favorite things
so
my
fun.
friends did at work was we would name our entire like office, and I know this is getting off topic, and I swear I'll get back on topic. We did like, what character are we from Game of Thrones?
Nice.
And we named everyone's character.
Oh,
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh.
It was so funny, man. But once you see that, it's like that's when you really know what your coworkers think of you. It's
Yeah.
like, really? You think I'm a firebender? Or like, really? You think I'm this character?
What do you mean I'm a non-bender?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Take
right.
it back right now.
So yeah, every time we did that at work, it was funny to see like, you think I'm Brienne? No. Like they would react to certain things we would diagnose him. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do, and I still think I'd be a firebender. But you know what's crazy? I was thinking about it. Like, if we had these bending abilities, if we lived in this world now, firebending would be the most useless one. It's only offensive
Why
power.
would you say that?
Because it's offense. I'm not going to burn someone alive. Like, if I was at war, sure. But I'm saying, like, a waterbender, you could be, like, you know, moving stuff around and grabbing. Airbender, you could be almost telekinetic.
Yeah, fire is pretty destructive.
It's only
Yeah.
destruction. It's only like burning stuff or burning people. Whereas like waterbender, I could see you like you could purify water and you could be like useful to society.
You could use fire
That's
for
true.
something helpful. You could
Like
do
what?
like thermal energy or something like that. Like
Oh, energy.
yeah.
How am I just gonna be firebending constantly at a
Just
All right,
power.
furnace?
Yeah, that's a great
Like,
question.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
firebenders have a shift. You know, they take
Well,
a couple
that's,
hours.
Korra does that too
Really?
with lightning bending because
Yeah.
firebenders also have lightning. But I don't know. I just thought of that where it's like they're cool in ancient times, but like in
Yes.
current times they'd be useless.
You're like, get
It's
away,
like we
you
need
monster.
someone to burn someone alive. It's like
Yeah.
all right. Let's move on to the books. No, I think that each book has elevation and evolution of not just the characters but the themes in the show and the demographic too. It really grows because book 1 is very kiddie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
book 2 slightly more mature, and then book 3 you're like, yo, like
You
politics.
are crying.
But yeah,
And
book
like
3 takes the biggest turn.
society,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like it's very political.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's incredible how it matures through the books. But let's start with book 1, which introduces us to Aang, which is the main
Right.
character, and essentially it takes us on our hero journey. What do you think of book 1, RB3, and kind of how
Right.
it gets us right into the characters?
Well, I think more than anything, I think what the show represents, and I kind of mentioned it when we talked about M. Night Shyamalan in our episode, but the thing that the show does really well is it's the same kind of traditional hero's journey story that we see in like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. It's the same kind of story, but it's more the day-to-day of that lifestyle, you know, like the day-to-day of confronting people, trying to learn something new, you know, all these different things. I think overall, what the first season was also playing it a little more safe because they didn't know if, you know, how people were gonna, you know, attach to the show and whatnot. But I think what the balance of humor and the balance of the action and the way it incorporated, I mean, you have to learn about both the Air Nation and the Water Nation essentially in one season. You know, but you learn all that you know about the Air Nation through Aang's perspective. But meanwhile, you have a whole nother subplot going on with Katara and her brother Sokka. Sokka. Sorry,
Yeah.
my apologies.
That's Shyamalan infecting you.
Yeah.
in your brain.
Yeah, exactly. But it has a lot of world building to do, but it does it like surprisingly really well. And this season in particular feels a lot more like introducing stuff, whereas the later seasons feel like, okay, now we're getting closer into the more emotional like heart of the story.
What do you think the tone is for book 1, Wendy? As far as like if you would nail it down, you think it's much more directed towards
It is
younger
it does,
demographic?
It does start them younger. The kids are at their youngest, you know, and so it's very fresh. Like I was thinking, like in themes of water, it's very refreshing when you see something like that. You see the brother sister and the family aspect of the water tribe, and you see them discovering Aang for the first time in that giant ice ball berg thing, and you know, kind of there's that innocence to that first few episodes until we get later on into the nitty gritty. But they don't really ride that innocent way for too long. As they figure out who Aang is and what he is, and with Katara and her waterbending, I feel like we started to learn that, or to notice really quickly that these characters have a lot of complexity to them,
Yes.
and it's just episode by episode, we're peeling them back.
Yeah, and I always forget the exact ages. I used to be pretty good at. I think Aang is 12, Katara is 14, and
Yeah.
Sokka is
Sokka's
15.
15. Is he
Well,
older,
isn't
a
And
year
Zuko
older?
is 16, I think.
Wasn't
Zuko's
Aang
the-
like 100?
Yeah, 112.
But he was like,
But he's 12.
12.
So
Yeah,
12,
yeah.
14, 15, and then Zuko is 16.
yeah,
I think.
Zuko's the oldest.
And
And
I think
Toph is
that-
like 8.
Yeah, no,
right?
Toph is 12 because she says it in an episode.
Really? Is she the same age
She
as
says
Aang?
it in her
But
first
Aang by
intro.
then was already, he had 8.
Well, I think the whole series takes place over 2 years. I think is what it is. Yeah, because I know that
She's so
Zuko is
little
18.
Yeah.
for a 12-year-old.
Zuko's 18 at the end of the series, or 17 at the end.
Okay.
18 or 17. So it takes place over a year and a half or 2 years. But yeah, they're kids. They're essentially kids. So
Yeah.
so it's literally like the kid sees himself as that character,
Yeah.
which is the whole point. But half the story is Katara, Sokka, and Aang.
Yes.
The other half is Zuko trying to capture the Avatar
Yes.
and fighting against Commander Zhao,
Yeah.
who's our main antagonist. Because Zuko is sort of our antagonist.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like our Kylo / Vader. He's like our character
He
who's
goes back and
evil, but
forth.
he's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we kind of like him.
Yeah. That's what I like about the show. It's not like a clear like black and white
Yeah.
thing. It could have been easily like these are totally evil people. These are totally
I mean, I
kind
can
of-
name one totally evil character.
Commander Zhao.
yeah,
probably.
Commander. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say Azula.
Oh, Azula, yeah.
She
well,
is-
even
At the
I can
end.
Love to
argue
hate
with
and hate,
you.
really?
I rewatched The Beach.
Okay.
She's so like likable in that episode.
With her, when she's with her family and her people, she's
Yeah.
a little different.
Sure.
Like you know, especially when you see like the flashbacks of her and Zuko.
I think
like you
she's-
feel a little humanity, but like you see her now and you see her when she. I mean, we're jumping ahead
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
When you see her at
And
Bossing
we don't even-
Say,
yeah.
she is like insane
pretty
in
evil.
the head.
I swear, but I'm telling you guys, rewatch The Beach. The Beach is the episode where they go to the island. It's just Zuko, May, Ty Lee, and Azula. It's just them
Yeah.
four, and
Yep.
they're just hanging out. It's the most like.
It's the funniest.
It's one of my favorite episodes, even though a lot of people hate it. But it really breaks down Azula to the point where I'm like, you're making her really likable right
yeah,
now.
that's true.
And it's the only
That's
episode
true.
where
but
she's
that
likable.
She had one redeeming episode.
One
Right.
redeeming episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get into that later on because we don't see her till book 2,
Right.
where she's the main antagonist in book 2. But in book 1, essentially, it's this back and forth between Zuko and Zhao, and you're like, I'm rooting for Zuko, even though he's the bad guy, and I'm
Yeah.
rooting for him to capture Aang. Like, this is such
But
a...
you don't want the
Yeah.
worst one to win.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
you know he's better off if Zuko captured him, because at least there's something there.
Yes.
But what do you guys think of that dynamic between kids in situations where they literally have to grow up very fast?
I mean, kids, I feel like, really deal with that a lot more than we think today. I'm sure that all of us can really rethink back into our memories and our childhood and really think like we had to deal with. Yeah, you know, it may not be like the world's most biggest issue, but to a kid, it means the world, right? So I think when they see something that's parallel to them on the TV, someone close to their age, they can relate to it, and that's kind of like an outlet to them. Be like, oh, I get that they're problem solving there, and I'm trying to problem solve my thing, and it's a nice way to connect with someone if they can't talk to their friends or their parents. Kids go to like that's why I think like arts, you know, and animation, things like that for kids is important, and for subjects like real world problems to be embedded in these episodes.
That's really deep. Yeah. Thank you.
That's why
meaning a
you're here.
podcast. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think like you said, and I'm just kind of going off of your point. I think that a lot of times animation kind of demonstrates a lot of the frustrations that children have, or a lot of adults recollect as children, and kind of adapts that into a much bigger thing. I mean, this is like a big spectacle, but at the heart of his story, it's really a coming of age story for every character, for Aang, for Aang.
That's Shyamalan again.
Shyamalan again, man. We just watched this. We just did
Yeah.
Shyamalan like 10 episodes,
Oh,
a
boy.
few episodes ago.
We did.
Yeah, so we watched it for that. But every character, even Zuko, has his own really incredible arc throughout the series. So yeah, it's really about learning lessons, and it embodies the core values of any great animated show, while also having an extraordinary sense of style and presence, and really great concept. I think this is probably one of the most original concepts for an animated show that somebody could come up with. Just these, especially breaking it up into three books: Water, Earth, and Fire. by breaking up that way, you really get a full understanding of each world, of each environment, and really get a sense of the ideology and the overall message. So
yeah, there's so many themes that the show deals with. Obviously, I'm going to talk a lot about destiny because I think destiny is the biggest theme of the entire show, and the concept of being put in a position that you don't want to be in, but everyone has those expectations, and that's how Aang feels. And we find out that that's how he went into the iceberg essentially, because he tried to avoid this conflict of being the Avatar and taking all this responsibility that he didn't want to have. He's like, I don't want this responsibility. Yeah. And now he's put in a position where not only is he the Avatar, but he's the Avatar in a world that needs an Avatar to save the world from a war. I mean, those are like times 10 expectations. Yeah. But book one ends with, obviously, the great battle at the Northern Water Tribe. And then Commander Zhao, eventually we find out what happens to him in Korra, which is incredible. But I
like that throwback.
Oh, I loved it. I freaked out. But it has this epic conclusion that we finish, and then we move on to the Earth Nation in Book 2. And I think Book 2 really opens up a lot of new things. It shows you especially with Zuko, it shows you the other side of being part of a Fire Nation that you see as evil. So someone from the outside can say Fire Nation evil, or anyone associated with that culture. I think that's the biggest thing it does. It shows you, like, just because he's put in this position to do things that you might not see as good doesn't mean he's evil. It means he's placed in an awful position where he has that same responsibility that Aang has. Yeah. So what do you guys think of Book 2 and kind of the elements and the themes that it tackles?
I think the one of the main things that I took away from Book 2 was the introduction of my favorite character, which was Toph, and seeing the struggle. So we already knew that, like, Aang had to enable to, I guess, be the Avatar. He has to learn different arts of bending. And having season 2 be his journey to learn, so he's mastered water bending, and for him to have now, okay, you've got that down, you're a great airbender, now you have to bend earth, and to just watch him, because every element is a little different. And I feel like he had a pretty easy time with water, just because it's fluid, and he had a really great connection with Katara, which we see come to fruition at the very end. And you kind of see him hit, no pun intended, but it's like the rock and the block with he hit a block with earthbending, and Toph really had to try to motivate him in so many different ways for him to get it, and he couldn't get it, and he knew that if he couldn't do this, couldn't really be the Avatar and couldn't save the world, right?
It's so good because it's that concept of, like, you don't have to just learn bending. You have to almost change and grow as a person, as, like, your personality. Where Aang grew up in a very monk and peaceful. Yeah. It's like, I must always be peaceful. I must always be. And it's like, no, sometimes you gotta.
Yeah, and he couldn't. That was, like, the hardest thing for him.
And you gotta get angry and you gotta face things head on. You can't just avoid things. So the concept of earthbending went hand in hand with the concept of him growing as, like, for lack of a better term, a man, right? Yeah. As far as taking these responsibilities for himself and facing them head on. So he's learning two things in one, which I think is incredible. Yeah.
I was gonna say.
I was gonna go to you anyways.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I think also the idea of him learning from Toph, someone who's blind, someone who, and by the way, you don't see a lot of representation for disabled people in these animated shows, so it's really great seeing that. But I think in particular with this, he's an airbender, so his like, that's the exact opposite of the Earth, of the Earth Nation and all that. So and earthbending. So him learning from Toph, who's blind, she has to use, like, vibrations and all these, like, very specific things that I think probably helps him connect to earthbending a lot more than the average earthbending master.
That's true.
I think overall, I mean, the way that you see a character like Toph, she has a different style than every other character in the show. At least compared to all the other earthbenders as well. And the fact that she has this, like, really strong presence in both teaching Aang and also in the fight leading up to Zuko and the Fire Nation overall, it's like you really get a full understanding of the magnitude of the story and how all the characters have to play, like, a different role and kind of helping Aang get to his Avatar status, getting to his full, having mastered all four.
Avatar state, yep.
Yeah. Exactly. It is that. It's exactly that. It's the fact that Toph was initially written as a male character, and they decided to make it a female character. So essentially, they kept all the same qualities, and they were introducing a character who's much more abrasive, much more confrontational.
Yeah.
Someone who just didn't care what other people thought, which was kind of refreshing in a world of Katara. It was great. I love Katara, but it's like we need someone who's much more like, hey, shut up and do your thing.
Yeah.
Like, we need someone to talk shit.
Yeah.
But one of the best parts of book 2 is when we get into Ba Sing Se, and when we meet Long Feng, when we meet the Dai Li.
Yeah.
We
the
see,
Dai Lis, man, are they scary?
Yeah, and it's that we essentially come back to this bigger theme of politics inside the world of Avatar, right? Where he goes inside the city, the great city of Ba Sing Se, the only thing that can kind of take down the Fire Nation if they wanted to. With that kind of power, and they choose to ignore the war. They keep classism. They keep people on the outside of the walls, very poor. They keep the rich people very rich on the inside, and they ignore everything that's going bad around the world. It's very much North Korea inspired, for lack of a better analogy, but it's very North Korea inspired as far as Judy being brainwashed, as far as Jet being told to not believe the war is going on, those kind of things. So what do you guys think of those kind of political elements of like bringing in something like a North Korea or like a totalitarian country that chooses to ignore evil and uphold culture in a very dictatorship kind of way, for lack of a better term?
I mean, I kind of like that they show that in animation, because it's like for a kid to learn it in history class, it's quite heavy.
Yeah.
But when you see it in these characters, and now it's book 2, so we've been with these characters for at least a year, and you watch them go through these things and you see it through their eyes, essentially, you get a better understanding and you know how to kind of relate to it. You're like, oh, and I think maybe these kids who are watching, the audience, is kind of like, oh, I can relate it to X, Y, and Z, to what they're learning in the classroom and whatnot. So it's as far as like kids programming goes, that can kind of go hand in hand with like real world history and things like that. And as far as adults, I think we spotted those similarities quite easily, whether it's like Korea or other countries that kind of rule are like similar to Ba Sing Se. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about this, okay. Right. I just thought it was a very adult theme.
Right. Dictatorship and all that, and I like how the show plays on those elements. I figured they get a lot more freedom as the show developed. I know the first season was nominated for a bunch of awards. The second season was they had won the Emmy for Best Individual Achievement in Animation that year. So the acclaim for this show kind of built it up, and the fan base is growing as well. And I think that really aids to how the reception of the show kind of lasted outside of just being a kid's show. Adults really had a lot to connect to too.
Yeah.
And by introducing themes like politics, spirituality, I also think is a big one. A lot of spiritual stuff came in season 1, but I think it also continues in season 2. The more you learn about Toph, and then the other characters that I introduced. Who are the two others? Mai and Ty Lee. Mai and Ty Lee, yeah. You kind of get like a more broad understanding of what spirituality means to different people in the show.
And I like that they bring in kids, essentially. I mean, teenagers.
Yeah.
Mai and Ty Lee on the other side of the Fire Nation, where it's like they're doing their work, they're doing their responsibility, their duty to their nation.
Yep.
Right.
That's how they see it versus how Katara and Sokka and everyone else sees it. And obviously, we get the conclusion. What I love about book 2 is that we keep hearing about Iroh and Zuko are hanging out, right? They're basically refugees inside the Earth Nation, but we keep hearing about how Iroh was this badass general who almost took down Ba Sing Se.
Yep.
And he went in head on against Ba Sing Se and almost took it down. But at the very end, at the finale of this season, Azula takes it down from the inside through manipulation.
Was she so good at it, though?
Through manipulation and control and manipulating the Dai Li to follow her instead of Long Feng. It's this idea of like Iroh doing it the old school way of bombs and blasting walls versus Azula doing it through espionage and spies and manipulation.
Getting close to your people.
Yeah, it's incredible the fact that she took down Ba Sing Se.
I remember that episode. Yeah, I was like, what did she just do? I couldn't believe she did it. I couldn't believe she did it because I don't know. I just part of me like I knew she was bad and I knew she was smart, but I didn't know how much how far she was willing to go.
She's the ultimate, in my opinion. She's the ultimate villain, man. I
so
love it
good.
because she's a prodigy.
Yeah.
And Zuko says the word prodigy.
Yes.
She's like invincible in fighting, invincible in strategy. Like
He was
she's
always
top
compared to
dog.
her.
Yeah.
Like when he was growing up. So it's just. I mean, like I was surprised, but then again, I think about it. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. You know,
Yeah.
it is Azula after all.
I love how, and I always do this, but that's because I love Game of Thrones. I compare this to like a Game of Thrones and how like there's.
So is she Cersei?
I would.
Or
Cersei's
was
not
she-
as cool.
Was she?
She's more Tywin than Cersei, or a Littlefinger, because I think they're much more. But yeah, almost like a
Yeah.
Cersei as well,
Yeah.
where she's like cunning and political and trying to develop plans to
Yeah.
take people over.
I know the whole family dynamic also adds another like deep element of resentment to that as well. I just watched that film, Fighting with My Family, that just came out
Yeah.
recently
What?
about Paige.
I wanted to see that.
Oh yeah,
Should have told me, man.
I'm sorry, man. Yeah, it's been out for like 3 weeks. I felt weird.
No,
like,
I know.
You know? But yeah, I mean, but that movie's very much. I mean, that movie in a very similar way is about the younger sister who's better.
Yeah.
Who can overtake the older, but the older brother kind of dealing with that resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how the show gives you like different shades of evil, like how Zuko you'd consider to be the main antagonist. Through the first season, he has to face up against his own kind of evil as well. But it's very internalized. So it's very complex, and I think I really dig that they go to those layers and have those.
And I love, and I'll finish up with book 2 by saying this. I love how the whole season they're building up Zuko's redemption, and at the very end, he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna kill the Avatar."
Yeah.
I think that's incredible. I think
was
that's
like,
great
no,
storytelling.
I was rooting for you.
That's such great. To me, that's like the Last Jedi with Kylo. I love that they were like.
Yeah.
It's like we can save you. He's like, nah, I'm the
good.
bad guy.
I'm good where I
gonna
am.
be the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
loved like that. To me is more refreshing than Kylo being like, I'm so sorry, take me back. I think it's more refreshing to him be like, no, I'm gonna do what I do, and I'm gonna do it over here and do it better than you. So the fact that Zuko took his sister's side at the very end after all that he went through, to me, is just great storytelling, and it builds up towards the best book, in my opinion, book 3. I think book 3 is incredible.
Yeah.
And right away we start out with, I don't know if you remember the episode, RB3, Aang when he goes to Fire Nation school. And he learns,
Oh.
and he learns all the cover-ups that the Fire Nation has been doing and
Yep.
teaching history. And he was there. They asked him like, "Were you there? How would you know more than the history books?" And he's like, "Oh crap! Like I
Right.
can't say anything." But essentially, it's the concept of like, I was there. I know the history,
Yeah.
and you're perverting it and you're changing it, and
Yeah.
you're saying that the Fire Nation are the heroes.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think of that episode? I don't know from what you remember of that episode.
Yeah, I don't think I remember that in particular, but
Yeah.
the way you're describing that sounds very familiar. And I think it's funny. I mean, that's a very real thing that happens. Revisionist history is a
Yep,
very real
yep.
thing. And I think it's just fascinating that you have a figure who's 100 and at this point he's like 113, right? 114.
Yeah, 113.
So excuse me. He has firsthand account, and I am curious if you brought somebody who lived in America back in 100 years ago and told them to look at a history book, they'll probably tell you all the things that's wrong about it.
Yeah.
But that's just the way we're taught things, we learn things. So it's very fascinating that they.
But they do that in a kids show, essentially.
Yeah.
I think that's the best part of it. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
What do you
it
think?
was a little shocking to me when I saw it. I was like, boy, are we saying that kids are being taught in certain places being
Right.
taught a certain version of history, and then
Right.
the rest of us are learning something different. So it was interesting to see. And I remember watching that episode. All I thought was, please don't get your cover blown, because he was surrounded and
Yeah.
like he was by himself. So I was like, oh my god. Because I knew we were coming to the end of that book, and what I loved about book 3 was the team up between, and I don't know if you want to call it a team up, but basically Aang learning how to firebend from Zuko,
Right.
and you just seeing this like can they actually work together? Are they gonna kill each other? Because this whole time it was a cat and mouse. It was Zuko trying to go after Aang coming over to Zuko. So it was a very exciting final season of Avatar for me.
Yeah, Zuko's redemption is one of the best things in
Yeah,
this entire
I think
show.
so.
Him trying to convince the Team Avatar that he's actually on their side and he's doing things for the right reasons, and he feels like this is his actual destiny versus what he thought was his initial destiny.
And he struggled with that, I think, from the beginning of wanting to please the Fire Nation and be an honorable son and be better than Azula or be just as good as Azula, right? So he always had this pressure on him to quote unquote do the right thing by the standard of his family and by his title, not what he wanted to do. And I love that. That's why I think Uncle Iroh was such an important element to Zuko. He was that balance, he was that conscience, and he, I think we all need a little Iroh in our lives. To kind of be our Jiminy Cricket, to be the conscience of like, oh, I can see it. There is another way. So the redemption for Zuko was the most satisfying.
Him meeting his uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him learning from the original Firebenders, finding out about the dragon.
The dragon was, I think I love that episode.
Yeah, that episode.
Little dragon dance.
Even him, the Boiling Rock. That's one of my favorite episodes. Boiling Rock is when he teams up with Sokka to rescue Suki inside the Boiling Rock prison.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, it's incredible. It's so good.
I'm sure it was comedy, though. Comedy gold.
It was comedic, but it's also, it was him trying to break out of this prison, and it was really
God, I don't
a
remember that one.
phenomenal episode. But let's finish up with this, and I want to go to like just our favorite moments and favorite characters. I really, really feel personally attached to the finale, and I always thought, like I told you 2 weeks ago, man. When people say greatest series finale of all time, this for me is the greatest series finale of all time. I think it's perfect. From it's Sozin's Comet, and then it goes part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But essentially the episode's called Sozin's Comet. It's just 2-hour episodes essentially. But I think it's phenomenal because the entire storyline of this finale is obviously him facing off against the Fire Lord, but it's him sticking to his morals to the point where he says, "I'm not going to kill him."
Yeah.
And he keeps saying, and it was like, "Dude, you got to kill him." No, you got. And all his friends say it, and then finally he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna ask my old avatars." And his old avatars are like, "Bro, you got to kill him."
Right.
And I love, my favorite one is, I forget the name of the avatar, but it's the other Air Nation avatar who tells him, he's like, no, this is against my faith. This is against my religion. What you taught me, you're a priest or a pastor, and you're teaching me that this is evil. And she says, sometimes our own spiritual gains have to be put aside for the good of the people. And I was like, yo, that's some deep stuff.
It's very adult.
And the fact that at the end of the day, and I told you about this when it came to the finale, and I know a lot of people didn't like it, but the finale of True Detective. That's kind of how I felt with the finale of True Detective, because I really did feel like this was such a high level of forces of good and evil. And like you said, spirituality. And since I'm a very spiritual guy, I guess I connected to it. But it felt like, you know what? The entire universe is telling me I have to do a certain thing. But here comes this force bigger than anything I've ever seen, which is the lion turtle.
Yeah.
Just this force of nature, almost this godly force, a god that says, you know what? Nah, you don't have to do that. You do it your way.
Yeah.
You make your own destiny. Your destiny is to do things your way. And he says you have this other way to bend the elements within yourself, and that's how he takes away the firebending.
Right.
But that to me was such a powerful moment, and people hate it. People think it's like, what is that? Storytelling plot hole, where it's like Deus Ex Machina, where the thing you need comes right at the last moment. And to me, it's not. To me, it's forces of nature and spirituality that really just say, you know what? There's so much evil going on in the world.
Yeah.
That I'm going to find a way to do this the right way, even if the entire universe is telling me to do it wrong. And that's why I think that finale is incredible. And obviously all the crazy action scenes in Sozin's Comet.
Oh,
the ending battle.
The animation is so good.
The Fire Lord versus Avatar.
Yeah.
It's so good. And when the turtle came out.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I know the clip just went viral on Twitter, like the finale, the big fight. Somebody posted on Twitter, and it just became like really viral again. Yeah, it's weird. I thought it was weird because we were just doing this episode, but yeah, I mean the animation that alone. I mean when his back hits the rocks and then he just like flames. It's like
my favorite is when Fire Lord Ozai like feels the Sozin's Comet.
Yes.
And then he goes out of his hand. It's like
So
this giant
good.
fire flame. Like, that to me. And Mark Hamill's incredible, obviously, as Ozai. Shout out to Mark Hamill.
In everything he does.
Everything he does. And then Zuko versus Azula.
So
that
good.
epic Agni Kai.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect. I think the finale is just the perfect conclusion to this story. I don't know what you guys think of the finale. I want to hear your thoughts because I know a lot of people don't like it, but I'm one of the people.
You know that a lot of people don't like it.
Yeah, a lot
really?
of people.
I thought I was one of the few.
Oh no! Every time I hear it, they're like, the lion turtle comes out at the last second. Everything's okay, and it's like that's the point.
That was my problem with it, but like. Because of this podcast, I researched a lot. So my problem with it was like I was like, oh, convenient, last minute. Yeah. You take away the bending, you take the easy way out. He didn't have to break his morals, right? So it, like everybody had a happy ending, and he got the girl, and Zuko got together with his girl and all.
I love that. I was just like,
I was happy, but
but I'm very much like as far as this goes, I'm very much pro killing for lack of a better. Like I'm like, yo, if there's some terrorist guy, I'll shoot him.
Right, and that was the thing, and it wasn't about the killing of Ozai. It was that through the entire 3 books we were building up to the Sozin's comet, and he's got to be the Avatar, and you've got to beat him, and everybody literally was telling him, even the most peaceful people were saying, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I love the set aside your religious beliefs for the good of the people. I was like, yo,
and that's heavy. That's heavy on the shoulder of a kid, right? He's still a kid, no matter how much he aged and how much experience he had. Right. But I just felt like it was just so convenient.
Yeah, it was pretty convenient.
I really, really wanted to see like what good of it, aside from Aang's not giving up his personal beliefs, what good did it really do people good? Like I feel like when you take away someone's bending, that person is still there. You took away their bending, but you didn't take away their mentality. That's what I thought immediately as soon as I watched it. And I was like, well, he's still bad. I mean, he's still here. What if he can still manipulate? What if his followers can break him out?
It's a very bold choice.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's a very bold choice.
I would kill Ozai on the heartbeat. I'd be like, this guy's evil. He wants to destroy the world. He's got to die.
But I think that's kind of what makes that finale so good. Is the writers could have taken that way out for everybody with the satisfying end, right? Of killing the ultimate baddie.
For personally, I felt it like I already said it. I felt it's very spiritual. It's a very spiritual finale. The fact that the whole world is telling you this thing, and it's like, no, it's impossible. Like literally, there's no way. It's not like a god is gonna come and say you have to do it, and literally a god comes in and does that. That to me is so fulfilling because I'm just like, yo, that's. You just told me to set aside my religious belief, but yo, here comes this lion turtle. I was like, nah.
We're gonna take away
I got your back. I'm God. So for me, I just thought that was so powerful where we live in a world that we see evil. Maybe once in a million years, we can see that good come out. So I absolutely love it.
It's just good through and through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Till the end.
And to me, that's the biggest theme, and I kind of want to end on this when it comes to the book conversation. Destiny. I kept thinking about this as I was watching the shows, especially Zuko and Aang, because they have the dual what is that called? Like the dual storylines.
Parallel story.
Parallel story. That's what it is. And they have that episode where they're basically following the same journey, and then we see Roku is actually his grandfather, so they have that connection.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of controlling your destiny, and at the end of the day, they kept fighting against their destinies.
Yes.
And they both accomplished their destinies.
Yeah.
Like they were like, I'm not going to do that, and they did it. So there was
like the ultimate test.
There was destiny at the end of the day, and I think destiny is always seen as like either like a good thing or like a thing that you don't like because you can't control it. And yet in this instance, destiny was good.
Yeah.
Destiny worked out for them, and what they were destined to do with their greatness, they accomplished. And that's what I love about Zuko and Aang being two sides of that.
Yeah.
Let's finish up with, I want to hear, what's your guys' favorite character? Just as simple as a favorite character, favorite episode. I'll start with you, RB3. Who's your favorite character?
I've always liked excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm sick. Yeah, my favorite episode's always been Katara. Character?
Yeah.
What did I say? Yeah.
You said favorite episode is Katara.
I'm sorry. Well, I was going to say my favorite episode, or the episode I at least remember most vividly, is like the episode where Katara has to face up against like that one dude who wanted
who
her,
killed his mom? Who killed her mom?
No, who wanted to she wanted to get trained by this dude.
Oh, yeah. Master Ping Pong, I forget his name.
Something like that.
Right.
And she was a girl and she didn't want to train.
And he was like, I just don't train girls. So then she literally like starts fighting him. She's like, no, I will be trained. And then she like
She's determined.
Yeah, and then I remember this because I was like, damn, this cold. But she made like a whole block of ice and then chopped off like little like shards and was like throwing them at him.
Yeah.
And like you just see like that one shot where he like looks at it and he like barely gets cut by it and he's like, oh shoot, she's like really trying to kill me. For that reason alone, I'm like,
Katara's your favorite?
Yeah.
She's
and then
she's great, man.
She ultimately ends up losing that fight, but she's
Paku is his name, by the way.
Paku, yeah. But even after that, he's like, oh, I guess I'll start training women now. Like, so I always dug that.
That's great. That's a good thing, dude. Where it's like this girl kicks her ass and you're like, yo, this is crazy. But yeah, Katara's amazing, man. I love her. She starts out, especially the first 2 books, she's the leader of the group,
she's
in
like
my
the
opinion.
mom.
She's a mom, but I also feel like she has this leadership quality to her. Whereas I feel like in book 3, Sokka takes that. But like
surprisingly, right?
Yeah, he just takes it when he learns how to fight and stuff. I'm like, yo, Sokka's the leader.
Yeah.
But I still love Katara, and obviously she's the greatest Waterbender of all time. Shout out to Katara.
Yeah.
Toph, the greatest Earthbender of all time. Shout out to Toph. But I'm assuming that's your favorite, right?
That's my
Toph?
favorite. The second I saw was The Blind Bandit was the episode. I
The
felt
boulder feels conflicted.
Oh my god, it was the
they wanted The Rock. They said that
Did
we
they?
wanted Dwayne Johnson, and we called him up, and he's like, nah.
He could have
I'm
crushed
Dwayne
it.
Johnson. I'm not going to do this cartoon.
Oh, he could have crushed
The
it.
Rock. Oh, he would have been
They
The Rock.
wanted The Rock,
As the
yeah.
Earth.
They
That's
could have
what's
crushed it.
up.
But you know what? I am happy with the boulder feels it was. I like characters when they address
That
themselves in
episode
like
is hysterical.
third person. It's
so
so
funny.
just because it's so unlikely. You see this like little.
When
everybody's
Sokka,
it's tiny little thing.
When Sokka gets really into it, and he starts like it's like a wrestling. You remember
like
the wrestling episode?
It's like a whole match.
It's like a wrestling thing, and when the boulder writes the ransom note, he's like, I have the boulder's autograph. It's one of my favorite moments.
She's just so great because she's a stubborn little thing, right? And she really had to, and she had her struggles too with her family, and they treated her like with like kids club because she's blind and she's got this
because
disability.
She's a little girl.
Yeah,
it also
and she's so
goes back to
tiny.
that.
And then you see her in like the underground in the matching, and she's kicking butt, and then she goes on this big adventure, and she's saved them so many times. She is that powerful for being someone blind, and she can be funny too. She wasn't all serious, and that's what I liked about her. She was a very well balanced character. Like Katara, I mean, I love all the characters. I don't dislike anybody, but like Katara was very like the leader, the nurturer, the mom, and the caring one. And she always had a plan, some sort of a plan. And Toph is kind of like, we'll just go do this. And she's just funny and loose, and she brought a different element to the group. Like the dynamic was very different when she was in it, because like at times she got a little annoying because she's that little kid, and you're like, control her, you can't control her, because she's a little spoiled.
Yeah.
But I just enjoyed her entire transformation.
What's your favorite Toph moment?
Oh, the library. When they're searching for the library, you're like, guys, because she hates flying too. She hates because she can't feel, so she's actually blind. And then she goes, guys, there it is. And then they all went, where? And she's like, and I busted up. I think I because I had a DVD, I rewounded that.
Yeah.
I think at least 3-4 times just to watch
so
it. I
funny.
busted up. I was like, I can't believe they made that joke. That's hilarious.
That's funny.
I love that joke. And then when they're hanging up posters for Appa, it's like, you think I can't hang some posters? And then she puts it down and she's like, it's okay.
It's upside down,
isn't it?
There was another one, and it's just a Sokka moment. And the cave, and they're like, Sokka, why is your face red? And it was somebody, I think it was like a filler episode where they had to get villagers out of like the dig hole or something like that. And he kept on like face palming himself.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I just remember when in the desert, it's the episode, when Toph runs into Sokka, and Sokka's like, watch where you're going. What's up? Can't you? Oh.
They had a lot of those
blind jokes. Yeah, they had a ton of blind jokes. It was funny. My favorite character, it's so hard for me to pick between the two. It's always between Sokka and Zuko. Mm-hmm. If I had a gun in my head, I would say Zuko, because I feel like they give him more to do.
Yeah. If
they give Sokka a tiny bit more, it might be like a tie or whatever. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's between these two characters. And I love Sokka. I think he's one of the funniest.
Sokka's great.
Like, he's the smart intellectual guy, but he's also funny and goofy.
Yeah. Right.
Like that concept of like, he's dumb. No, he's the smartest guy we have. Yeah. Is so good to me. And I absolutely love Zuko. Zuko is my favorite character. I feel I
Complex.
connect to him. I put one time in my Twitter account when they were doing like what fictional characters do you most relate to. I put Zuko.
I had Toph in mind. I
Yeah.
remember that. It was like 4 characters,
Oh,
right?
I think I remember commenting
They were
on
all
yours or
green.
liking yours.
They were
Yeah.
all green colored, and I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put Zuko because I feel that concept of like having this like fiery personality and family and all that. I don't know. I just connect to Zuko the most. I
Yeah.
just find him to be completely fascinating.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's so many Zuko moments that I love, but when he Sparky Boom Man, when he faces
Oh my
off against
God.
Sparky Boom Man is amazing. And I love the name Sparky Boom Man.
was it who gave him that? Was it Aang?
It was Sokka.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing name. Any favorite episodes? Anything that you remember? Episodes that really stood out to you, or moments that?
Well,
really
I
stood out?
kind
Or
of mentioned the
moments?
Katara one. That's
Okay.
probably one
Oh.
that stood out a lot the most.
I have a couple.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
yes.
Go for it,
I
Wendy.
got my list. Obviously the Ember Island players. We have
Girl.
to talk about that.
Don't get me started.
I laughed so hard through the entire.
I saw
like,
this last
Yeah.
night, and I was
I
dying.
rewatched that one
Yeah.
because I had to, just because it's like from time to time I can't just like pop it up. I was like, I'm just gonna find the episode and watch it, especially after the Shyamalan mess
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
movie. I was like, what if the end credit, the real Avatar people were like watching the movie? They're like, yeah, that's not any good. Like, oh god, just to see everyone's kind of sinking into their seats. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
depicted like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
They're
you have
watching the
Toph
movie of
that's like,
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
my name is Tough because I am tough. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, God,
It's so many.
It was so meta.
I can
Yeah.
quote that entire. It's so funny. I mean, when Katara says, "I think they got you down, Zuko," and he's like, "How could you say that?" And
The
then
scar's on the wrong side.
the actor turns around and Iroh's like, "Let's go over here." How could you say that? It says the same thing to him. When they first discover Aang in the iceberg, it's like it looks like a boy in an iceberg, frozen for perhaps 100 years.
Yeah.
It's like the exact
so
storyline.
funny. And I like the makeup when like avatars stay activated and like the actress closed her eyes and it was like glow in the dark makeup and the line dragged
Yeah.
her. It was great.
Avatar say, yip, yip, yip,
Yip yip.
That episode's incredible. My favorite is Zuko, we must talk about your hair. It's gone too far. And his hair is all like
Oh,
luscious.
yeah.
And he's swinging his hair around.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. And then when Azula is like, choose your family or choose treachery. And Iroh is like, choose treachery. It's more fun. And he just like winks
Oh
to the
my
camera.
God.
It's so I love that episode. I think
There's
it's
so
incredible.
many. Do you remember the episode where I think it was right after the library? After they came out
The
of
desert?
the library.
Is it cactus juice?
It was although that was a hilarious
That was
episode.
funny.
No, when they kidnap Appa.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I cried watching those because Aang,
Right?
when he was in the Avatar state,
Yeah.
he couldn't, and then Katara had to hug him, and just you saw tears,
the
and I was like,
tears.
damn it!
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was
I-
like, give this man back his flying buffalo.
That the Appa episode, I think it's like the
that's
Lost
hard.
Tales of Appa or something like the story
Appa's
about.
Lost Days.
Yeah,
or
Appa's
something
Last
like
Days,
that.
and you just see his POV.
Oh.
Oh my God, my heart! I was
Yeah.
like this poor creature.
Yeah.
Oh my, and
Yeah.
he's just going through so much shit.
Yeah.
And obviously he can't talk. All he does
Yeah.
is grunt. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you feel every freaking
That was
emotion
hard. That was
for this
hard.
animal, and it's an animal POV. That
Yeah.
one, and then the Lost Tales of Ba Sing Se, where
Oh,
Iroh
yes.
breaks down.
Yes.
And starts crying and remembering his son. Oh my God, it still gets me every
God.
time because he remembered
all
like
the
his
Iroh
only
stuff.
son.
I mean, there's a bunch more. There's like the Blue Spirit. Remember when?
Oh my God, the Blue Spirit's incredible.
When Zuko couldn't use bending to fight because they would figure out who
Yeah.
he was, and I was like, are they gonna work together with the Avatar? And then there was the blood bending episode.
I was gonna say. I was just gonna
I
say.
was
the
about to say it
Bloodbending
too.
episode.
It's called the
Yeah.
Puppet Master.
The Puppet Master. There you go. I was like, yo, this as a kid.
Gross, right?
Yeah, and
Yo.
you know, I feel like that was really when I first noticed how dark the show was. Like,
Yes.
that's really when the transition like fully hit. Of like, oh wow, this is a much more adult show.
Mm-hmm.
That's freaky. I don't know. That to me is like the most horrifying thing. Like, knowing someone can control your blood and your movement.
Because there's
Yeah.
water and your body is
Yeah.
like what, like I don't know how many percent.
like
It's
70,
like
se-
70%
like a
water.
lot,
something.
yeah. Oh.
That's
That
hardcore.
episode is incredible. I love that episode. And the concept of, I love the evolution of bending. And obviously Korra does this times 10,
Mm-hmm.
but the evolution of like earth bending, diving into metal bending, where it's like, you know
Yes.
what?
Yeah, metal bending, yeah.
I can metal bend. And then water bending, going into blood bending. And then fire bending, doing the lightning. Because
Yeah.
lightning to me is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
All those like evolutions of the bendings to me are just that to me is just world building, taking a concept that you already created and just blowing up your imagination and just being like, if I can control this, that means I can control this.
Yes.
It's just, that is genius storytelling to me.
Yeah.
When you can create, that's why I'm a nerd, obviously, and we're all nerds here. When it comes to stuff like the Force and Star Wars, and people debate this stuff, but to me, or telekinesis, where it's like if I can control, because I'm such a nerd, if I can move stuff with my mind, then maybe I can move this, and maybe I can fly, maybe I can, like the evolution of a power set is so powerful. Like telekinesis means I can do this.
Yeah.
Or telepathy, right? If I can control your mind, then maybe I can make you think certain things. Maybe I can make
Jedi
you
mind
change
trick.
your personality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why stuff like the Force for me is like every time, like The Last Jedi, I love that stuff because I'm like, that's what you do. You take a power set that people know and then you evolve it. You say, what if I can make a reflection of myself?
Yeah.
What if, or when Leia gets saved by the Force, like what if I can use that Force as almost like an avatar state, where if my body is in danger, the Force just activates and saves me. Like the avatar state saves Aang when he's about to die. And that's how Leia got saved. And everyone's like, I hated that scene. I loved it because to me, it's like, it's evolution of power, where it's like maybe a power is so powerful that it can actually activate within myself. And I don't even know it did.
Yeah.
Was that The Last Jedi? Oh, I didn't like that scene.
Oh, I loved it.
Well, she went like this and she went back to the ship.
It looked goofy, but I still loved the power set.
It looked a little clumsy, a little weird, but other than that, I was like, oh, I mean, I get it. She's got the Force blood running through her.
I love the idea of it. I just think to her, like, doing the pose.
I agree. I didn't like the pose. I like the idea of it.
Yes.
But I like how Star Wars does that with powers and how Avatar does that with powers, with water bending and blood bending. Oh, that's so cool. And Toph, when she earthbends for the first time, I'm the greatest earthbender ever. Don't you forget it. And then she just explodes out of the ground.
Yeah.
So cool. So cool. Thank you so much, Wendy, for doing this episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate
So much fun. Thanks for letting me nerd out with you guys.
I adore this as much as you do. Did you ever? Am I wrong, or did you ever cosplay as Toph? Or?
As Toph.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that on Instagram.
They said pick a character, and like we had a guy that kind of had like the physique of Zuko, and like I wasn't gonna be Aang because there's just no way to hide the fact that I was a girl. And they're like, who do you want to be? I was like, I want to be Toph because we should have an Earthbender. They're like, sure. They're like, if you can put the costume together, so I did.
I think it's perfect.
And the thing is, it was for birthday parties, so it was really hard to walk around and like play blind, even though I had those like super light contacts, like as light, like pale gray, and they were kind of hard to see. So it's like, and I couldn't really look at someone directly because I wouldn't as a blind person, right? So it was, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Is that on Instagram or?
It's on. Probably.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like
a while ago.
Or Facebook.
Or Facebook. Okay. I'll probably put the picture up.
Yay! I'll send it. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so glad we got to do this with you. And obviously, we want to have you back for whatever else you want to talk about. So.
Everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I gotta catch up on Legend of Korra. And
oh my God.
We gotta.
Korra is amazing. I can give classes of Korra. How many times I've seen it.
Your dog's named Korra.
Korra is definitely a lot more grown up.
Yeah,
it's like an evolved version of
it's
Avatar.
so good. And people kind of hate on it, but I
Do
love.
they?
Oh yeah, I've met people. I've talked directly with people who like give me weird looks when I say I adore Korra. But I think it's because they unfairly compare it to Avatar. It's
You
its
can't
own. You just can't. But yeah, my dog is named Korra. That's how much I love her, the character, and I can, do an entire episode on that, which eventually we might do. But either way, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We really do appreciate it. Once again, you can find us on YouTube at First Cut.
Yes.
So please go over there and subscribe if you haven't found, and on SoundCloud,
Both links in the description.
Where can we find you on the social medias, RB3?
You can follow me at Director RB3.
And Wendy, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wendy Lee Szany.
Awesome. All right, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Squad Leader Ace. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let us know in the comments if you are in the comments down below. Favorite character, favorite moment, favorite line from the Avatar series. Let us know in the comments down below. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the Meaning Of podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out. Peace out, guys.